Red velvet cake is one of those cakes that I've really never liked, and I think it's because it has a funky smell due to the buttermilk, and also because it tends to be dry.
You're watching the Bear Pantry Show.
This cake is going to be different in the regard that we're not going to be using buttermilk or distilled white vinegar. So let's take a look at the ingredients that we're going to need. Cake flour, cocoa powder, baking soda, granulated white sugar and brown sugar, butter, eggs, sour cream, guys, sour cream, no buttermilk here, red dye, and vanilla. And of course we need a little bit of water for the sour cream. So let's start by sifting all the dry ingredients onto this parchment paper. This is the cake flour, next the cocoa powder and the baking soda. And I'm not adding salt to my recipe because my butter is already salted. But if you're using an unsalted butter, then by all means add up to a teaspoon of salt if you desire, okay? Let's sift everything onto the parchment. You know, the baking cocoa always has a lot of lumps. So now I'm going to go ahead and put it into this bowl and I'm going to sift it again. So I'm sifting twice, okay? Let me be careful how I pick this up before I lose all my dry ingredients. Now into the sieve or strainer it goes. Sift again. I sped it up for you guys because it's taking too long. And yes, I'm having a little bit of trouble with my throat. For all you keen listeners. Let's go ahead and whisk. And then we're going to set this aside so that we can start creaming the butter and the sugars. And because my house is still so cold, it's about 60 degrees in here today, the butter is not really softened. It's room temperature, right? It's in the room, but it's not really softened. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this first, or whisk it first, before adding the sugars, okay? So here comes the white sugar. And I will put a list of the ingredients down below in the description. The brown sugar. This is going to make it so moist. No dry red velvet here. This is the first time I'm trying this cake. And I'm holding my breath along with you guys to make sure that it's going to come out right. So this is going to take a while. Honestly, this normally takes me about 6 minutes when the day is warm. Oh, look. I have an audience. Josh and Jory. Joe is fixing Jory's bike for him. So it took closer to 8 minutes. Normally this takes me about 5 minutes or so. Takes 8 minutes. And then the eggs, the whole eggs, I'm going to put them in one at a time. You know, whenever I put Jory on camera, he likes to do things like give the middle finger or something that I can't use it. But he don't know me. I can cut things out. So just take your time with it, guys. Patience is the key. This is the third egg, so there's 4 eggs. Normally the recipes that I find for red velvet cake only calls for 2 eggs. See how rich this cake is going to be? Now the last egg. And then scrape your bowl. And this batter is going to be very thick, all right? Now I've added the vanilla. And this is homemade vanilla. And it's a lot of red dye. And I still didn't have enough, but I used 2 of the little bottles of red dye. Check the description below to see how much red dye you need to have, okay? So I'm a little bit shy, but I think it's still going to be okay because this is looking pretty red here. And be careful because this red dye will get over everything. Your clothes, the countertop. That's why I laid the dish towel down. Because I don't want this stuff to stain my countertop. The quartz countertop is pretty impervious to a lot of things. But I take great care of it still. So now here's what we do with the sour cream. We have about a half a cup of water. And we're just going to dump the sour cream in here and mix it to make it become more like a milk. Joe is making sure I get all my red dye. Alright, let's get a whisk and whisk this up. If it looks a little bit red, it's because I used a spatula with some red on it. So now we're going to add the sour cream slurry along with the dry ingredients alternately to the creamed mixture. And I'm just going to go half and half. Normally I do a third, but I'm over this already. I'm tired. And if this recipe comes out good, it's going to be in my little cake book that I'm making. You guys know I took a pause on making the cake book because it's too many cakes to make. And I have to make large cakes because when you cut the slice, you want it to look good. When you make smaller cakes, the slices, don't look as large and beautiful in the pictures, right? So my neighbor across the street says, don't you worry about us. You bring those cakes here. But I'm not going to give this one away because I'm fighting a cold and I don't want anybody to get anything that I have. So I've added a little bit of the sour cream mixture. And then the rest of the dry. Notice how I get it kind of wet first with the cream mixture because I don't want things to go floating everywhere. And by the way, if you have somewhere to go, important, while you're making this cake, because a lot of times I'll make a cake and take it to a party, right? If you have somewhere to go, put on gloves because you're not going to be able to, well, I was going to say resist. You're not going to be able to avoid getting that red dye on your fingertips. And it doesn't come off for a few days. Put the rest of the sour cream mixture. Now the sour cream is going to activate with the baking soda. That's why most red velvet cake uses distilled white vinegar because they want that to react with the baking soda. But the sour cream is going to react with that and the baking cocoa. It's all science, guys. So I'm going to light the oven and put it up to 350. The recipe says bake it for 25 minutes, but the person did 3 thin cakes. I want 2 thick cakes. So even though I'm going to set it for 25 minutes at first, I don't think it's going to be ready in that time frame. So these are 9x2 pans, and I think they're 9x2.5. And I've greased and floured and laid down parchment on the bottom. I don't think I needed the parchment because this is a thick batter and my cake tins are fairly new, but I don't want to take any chances. I'm putting a little bit of the batter in one of these easy bake oven pans because I want to bake some batter separate so that I can break it up into crumbs in order to decorate the cake on the outside, okay? So an offset spatula would work great here, but I don't have a small enough one, so I'm using this little mini spatula. Just level it off, guys. Let me go ahead and scrape everything off my regular spatula with a spreader. Well, I say this is kind of like an offset spatula, but it's more like a butter spreader. Shake it. Don't really knock it down because we don't want to lose any of the fluff. And shake it. The oven is up to temperature already, so we're just going to go ahead and stick these 2 in. And we're just going to put these 2 in at first, not the baby one, because the baby one will cook fast and I don't want to have to open the oven until it hits the 25 minutes. So let's take a look. It's 25 minutes. No, I'm not even going to touch it. It looks raw in the middle, so let's give it 10 more minutes. And I did put the baby cake in at the 25 minutes. I forgot to tell you guys. Toothpick inserted is coming out clean, so it needed 35 minutes. Adjust the time for your oven, okay? Check it with the toothpick. And I think the baby one might be ready too, so the baby one only needed 10 minutes. See why I didn't want to put that one in the beginning? Now let me go ahead and grab my wire cooling racks. This is from my friend Shanika. She gave me this. It comes by a set of 3, but I only need 2. For these cakes, I let it set for about 5 minutes and then I'm dumping them out and peeling off the parchment, and then I'm going to let it cool down completely before I apply the frosting, which is what I'm going to show you how to make right now. But let me get the baby one first, okay? There we go. I've had these things since Jada was a baby. She had an easy bake oven, but it never worked. The light never worked, and she was mad because we never got the bulb for it. So I have 1 block of regular high-fat cream cheese. Any brand will do, but don't get that stuff that's in the plastic bin, okay? Get the block. And then 1 stick of butter. And we're just going to beat this until it's creamed before we add powdered sugar. And it's going to be quite a bit of powdered sugar. I think it's like 4 cups, and I'm going to add 1 cup at a time. Let me mix it in a little bit so it doesn't go floating onto my camera lens. And this is all it takes to make the cream cheese frosting. I will put a little bit of vanilla in this too at some point. So the frosting is ready, so let me grab my plate, pretty white plate for this red cake, and put the first cake with the pretty side down, because when you cut the slices you want that pretty side to show. And I'm going to be careful how I spread this frosting. I want some to spill over the edges because I want it to look pretty in the pictures. I want it to look thick. Put the other one on and then dump a lot of frosting on top. Look at the lines in the cake from the cooling rack. I should have put it with the bottom side down. Now at first I didn't remember why I didn't have a clip of me cutting the cake, but it's because I put it up and cut it the next day. And I wanted to take these pictures for the cake book, okay? So see, gorgeous, right? Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and leave me a comment. Bye!
This is the Beth Andrews Show.